Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're
The Time Travel Trio.
Hyde, what did you pick today?
I chose the film 12 Monkeys by Terry Gilliam, and it came out in 1995. The tagline is, "In a future world devastated by disease, a convict is sent back in the time to gather information about the man-made virus that wiped out most of the human population on the planet." Stars Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, and David Morse, and a couple other people. I think Madeline Stowe.
Madeline Stowe.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a...
So I saw when I was watching it too, but it's also a writer credit that it's a remake of a maybe French film. It's like
yeah, it was a remake of a short French film.
Okay,
so it wasn't like a Lake House where it's a full movie.
No, not a full movie.
It's like
just like a short film. I think it was like just like the concept, pretty much just going back in time to fix a virus, and the whole idea about time loop, and then they extended it into a feature film.
Huh.
Cool.
Terry Gilliam's vision.
So I have seen this movie once prior to this watch. Matt, you have not seen it?
Yeah, it was my first time seeing it. Did you see it? Like, how long ago did you first see it?
I'm pretty sure I saw it in a college class.
Okay,
a
so
film class. And
right.
That feels like that's when I would have seen that.
Okay.
Movie. Yeah.
I saw it. I think it was on TV the first time I saw it. Then I rented it. I've probably seen this movie about 3 or 4 times over my lifetime, including now.
Okay.
So overall feeling.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I saw it, I knew nothing about anything. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know any of the twists. I didn't really know anything besides Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt are in it. And I liked it. I liked the style of it. I liked the way that it kind of developed,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of Monty Python, so Terry Gilliam is, right up my alley. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of this movie. I've just always kind of liked Terry Gilliam's work. This is probably my second favorite Terry Gilliam film, behind The Adventures of Baron von Munchausen. I just butchered that name, but don't worry. Sorry.
I had seen it once before. I like this movie, but I didn't really like it that much. I think part of it was, I was not really in the mood to watch it.
Mm-hmm. It's a very stylized movie.
But it's also like, it's heavy, but it's not like exhaustingly heavy. But I think it felt predictable for me, and I don't know if that's because I have seen it before, but I don't know. I just didn't really enjoy it this time.
You felt the story beats too much, like not in an enjoyable way?
Yeah, I felt tired. Like there was so much exposition that I just didn't feel like I wanted to make so many efforts to keep up with what they were saying. I would have rather not had to listen for, I would say most of the movie is exposition.
There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of dialogue in rooms.
I mean, it's a little bit different. So, we did Looper already, and that movie felt slow because there's a lot of empty pauses. This movie didn't feel that way, but yeah, it was kind of longer than it should have been. It was like 2 hours long, the movie was.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really feel it necessarily my first time seeing it, but I kind of see what you mean by predictable. Not that it's like, not that you can just tell everything from the beginning, but they kind of pepper things throughout the movie to be like, okay, here's, they kind of walk you through a little bit,
It feels like, how when you're watching a cartoon and there's something in the background that the main character is going to touch or look at a couple seconds later, and it's clearly outlined or something, or it's a brighter color than everything else around it. That's kind of how... Right. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about this. The things that they were pointing out that were clearly hints for the rest of the story felt too outlined to me.
I can kind of see what you're saying, and this is coming from someone, I really enjoy the film, but I do know what you mean. Even you can kind of, there's a lot of stuff you see coming. Part of that's good. I appreciate directors when stuff just doesn't come out from left field, and you're like, oh, there's no, I don't like it when directors cheat to give you a big twist.
Yeah.
That being said, not that I would say these movies are on the same level. They're very different movies. I'm not going to say one's better than the other, and I won't spoil what happens, but Predestination is a movie that we've talked about recently on the show where it it tells you everything, literally tells you everything, but you still don't get the twist because you just don't. Your mind just doesn't go there.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting because I was also comparing it to Predestination in my head too, and I think they're similar in like similar kind of tones a little bit. It feels similar in ways, but yeah, I like when it's smart that it fools me into not realizing it. It makes the movie much more enjoyable for me to watch, which is why I liked Predestination a lot more than this movie just in that sense. Because I think when we talked about Predestination, I was like angry because I didn't figure it out, but like in a good way. But with this movie, I was like, oh, it's clearly this, clearly that, you know. And I saw this movie once, 2016, 4 or 5 years ago, and you know, yeah, maybe in the back of my mind I remembered, but it was also like, it didn't make it fun for me to watch. Yeah, Brad Pitt is good and his acting is crazy, but yeah, I think I didn't really care for it. It's not a movie that I'd be excited to watch again anytime soon. Not to say that I think it was bad. It just
wasn't your style.
I just didn't enjoy it, and maybe it was being in the mood for it. I don't know. So
yeah.
Anyway, kind of a little over the board. So let's play the trailer.
You're a very good observer, Cole.
We have a very advanced program, something very different.
An opportunity to reduce your sentence considerably.
And possibly play an important role in returning the human race to the surface of the Earth.
No license, no prints, no warrants.
But he took on 5 cops like he was dusted to the eyeballs.
What year is this?
What year do you think it is?
1996.
That's the future, James. Do you think you're living in the future?
I'm simply trying to gather information to help the people in the present trace the path of the virus.
We're not in the present now.
This is a place for crazy people.
I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
The army of the 12 monkeys, they're the ones that spread the virus.
Monkeys.
He's been living in a meticulously constructed fantasy world, and that world is starting to disintegrate.
You haven't become addicted to that dying world?
No, sir.
He needs help.
I think I'm crazy when people start dying next month. I don't belong here.
You're here because of the system.
I know some things that you don't know.
Yes, my son.
You sent me to the wrong year.
You're certain of that?
Science ain't an exact science.
You had a bullet from World War I in your leg, James. How did it get there?
I don't know.
You're a trained psychiatrist. You know the difference between what's real and what's not.
You said that I had delusions. You said you could explain.
I'm trying to.
I want the future to be unknown.
I can help you. Get you out.
You can't hide from them. Don't even try.
We're all monkeys.
The thing mutates. We live underground.
They're watching you.
I just want to do my part to get us back on top, in charge of the planet.
So
Yeah, very dramatic.
It's a very dramatic. It's a very 90s dramatic trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good trailer. After I finished the movie, I was thinking about that I felt fooled in a bad way that the movie is called 12 Monkeys. It almost like...
It's the red herring.
Yeah. And it's... Which I get it. I get both sides of that. I get why they would do that, and it's a good title. But I also am like frustrated because they try and bore it into you the whole movie. The 12 monkeys are the problem, whatever. But they're not. So at the end, it's kind of, I don't know.
You didn't appreciate. I like that twist when I always liked it because it was one of those kind of twists where like it pretty much is like dangling a carrot in front of your face kind of trick. Mm-hmm. I mean, which can sometimes be frustrating in a bad way. For me, it wasn't personally, just because it's. I took it always as you're you're kind of getting tricked in the same way that Bruce Willis's character is getting tricked. Because he's told from just the onset, everyone's told from the onset, 12 monkeys, they're the problem. 12 Monkey Army is why everything's messed up in the world. And he goes there with that in mind, and it's not until he's really willing to just like break it all down and be like, am I really going crazy? Wait a second, what's going on? Let me actually listen to what these so-called crazy people are saying. He's like, wait a minute. And so, for me, I liked it, but I can also understand why it could also be just kind of like, what? Like,
yeah, I do like that twist that they're just releasing the animals. I liked that they aren't actually like responsible for the virus.
Yeah.
But I think once that twist is revealed, the problem of the virus is still there. So I don't feel like, oh, you tricked me, now everything's going to be okay. There's like a moment of them being like laughing when they're in the taxi cab, like, oh, ha ha ha, this is ridiculous, there's no such thing as this virus, whatever. But we know that there is. So I think that's part of why I didn't like it, because it was so late and we're like, okay, but this virus is still a problem somehow. So just because you released animals, that feels like secondhand, and I think that's why I just didn't feel like it all connected enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bruce Willis, at that point, he's pretty much just, his brain is fried, so he doesn't know what's real anymore. He's like, throughout the whole movie, he's like being going crazy and fed drugs, and for him, it hasn't been that much time, that he's been, like, his life that we see, it hasn't been that many days, even though it's been years, to and from the past and present. It's been like a couple weeks, I think, for his life that he's been just drugged and shot and, sick because he had like a wound on his leg for however many days he had it, you know?
But it didn't feel like...
World War I wound, too.
And maybe part of it is I wish that I was more immersed and felt like we were Bruce Willis, not we were watching Bruce Willis.
I feel what you're saying on that.
Yeah.
Because I think that would have made a difference of, it is still the question of what's real, what is he just creating or paranoid about. But I didn't feel like we were, like a camera on top of his head, like watching what he's doing. It felt like we were outsiders watching his story unfold, and we weren't necessarily a part of it. So it was easier. I felt it was easier as a viewer to step back and look at things instead of being confused. And I would have rather have been confused on what's real, what's not, especially when it towards the end when he really does feel like he's crazy and doesn't know what's reality and what's the present.
Yeah, I mean, Terry Gilliam, he's a very good director, but he is not a director, at least from my knowledge of looking at his work, who aims to put you in the shoes of the character. Everything he does is very fairy tale style, like someone is telling you a story.
Yeah.
In this movie, 12 Monkeys, if you're interested in filmmaking or in cinematography or anything of that nature, just a visual medium, watch this movie because there's a lot of wide shots, a lot of medium shots, and a lot of Dutch angles, particularly when dealing with Brad Pitt's character or close-ups on Bruce Willis. There's almost no straight-on, centered, 0-degree shot of anyone on a close-up.
I mean,
it's always tilted.
Especially the scientists, too, in the future. Well, the present, I guess.
Yeah, the present. No, because they're all... Everything is just a little off. Everything is just... And it gives... As it builds and the slant gets a little bit more profound or, prominent during the film, is as Willis is losing his mind. But also, if you watch Brad Pitt's character, the camera starts to get a little bit more even as his character becomes more and more rational to Bruce Willis's. So it's very interesting. Like, we know Bruce Willis is going crazy, but to Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt is like, this guy's making some sense. But I agree with you on that, that it is very whimsical. It's a very whimsical scene. Even when they're explaining to him the mission, they're almost telling him, it almost sounds like a 1984, like an excerpt from like the novel 1984. Like, it's very Orwellian type of assignment. I do have a clip I brought of that scene, and if you listen to it, you can just tell that it's meant to feel almost unnatural, very inorganic, the way they speak to him.
We have a very advanced program, something very different.
An opportunity to reduce your sentence considerably.
And possibly play an important role in returning the human race to the surface of the Earth.
We want tough-minded people. Strong mentally. We've had some misfortunes with unstable types.
For a man in your position, an opportunity not to volunteer could be a real mistake. Definitely a mistake.
So, yeah, I mean, if you ever watch the clip, if you guys want to check it out, you can go on YouTube, 12 Monkeys, and just search the word like scientists offer. If you watch the scene, it's almost all Dutch angles. Mm-hmm. And everything's kind of grimy and dirty and very, like, clinical, the way they talk to each other.
I mean, this whole movie is grimy and like, there's obviously a carried theme of mental insanity and all that stuff, you know? And that's, I don't know, it's even, you can even see it, too. Like, it's visually like a nut house, kind of, you know?
Yes. Everything kind of feels like one giant asylum.
Yeah.
But in that, they're explaining to him, even like now when they're about to shoot him up and time travel at the same time, they're kind of saying, like, this is a chance to reduce your sentence. Like, you know, the human world is like saving the human population is like a secondary component for motivation for, they feel as a secondary motivation for his character. They're like, hey, you can save the world, but, you know, the important thing is you could also get a reduced sentence.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to care about his sentence at all.
What is his sentence from?
They never...
He has, like, violence.
Yeah, violent history. And also, what they use, I believe something along the lines of, like, sexual misconduct, which they don't mean, like, sexual assault, like rape. What they mean is, like, he's probably having, like, unregulated, like, sexual intercourse, which in their world would probably be very dangerous.
Yeah, because they're underground.
They're underground.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can't get her pregnant, no more mouths to feed.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they bring him in, they list his crimes, and it's not like he's like a psychopath, but he's certainly, at least for their new society, unstable.
Yeah, he's a little unhinged though.
Yeah,
like just regardless of all of his time travel insanity induced stuff, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So let's get into the time travel. So there's a machine. You know what it reminded me of was those pods from the Matrix.
Yeah,
kind of. You know, like the birthing pods.
All wired in and stuff.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like that to give you guys a visual, but
yeah, they don't really explain the science of it all. I mean, it doesn't really make sense because in the past, when he goes back to the future, he just vanishes.
Yeah.
So there's no explanation as to how they actually pull him from the past back to the present. They track him by a thing in his tooth. That's how they find him to bring him back. But I don't know how the machine in the present finds him and brings him back to the present.
Yeah, right. Because so it's not like
Wi-Fi ping.
Yeah, right. He doesn't get into another machine.
He just vanishes.
After he travels, he just disappears. So to me, I guess it felt like if I had to make an assumption that maybe it's like a timed thing.
Well, I thought that too.
They've studied him. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but they've studied him and maybe know how much time to give him. I don't know. That's a stretch, but...
Well, I don't know. I think they can monitor where he is and when he is. And because when he went to World War I, he was only there for a little bit. And they're like, oh, we messed up, move him somewhere else. Like, it's obviously it's not a perfect science because they fucked up a lot.
And they even say, like, science is not an exact science.
Right, yeah, but I think they know enough to know where he is, and then they can move him from where they are.
Yeah, it does seem like
explain it.
It does seem situational, I guess, because you know when he's in a pond, they're about to be captured by the police, and they take him, and then when he's in solitary, when they like strap him to the bed, they take him then too. So yeah, maybe it's situational, and then you know he takes
stress levels.
Yeah, he takes his teeth out, and so they send another guy to find him. And I liked that scene when
in the airport.
Yeah, all the airport stuff. But when his friend Jose, I think his name was like, "Yeah, we got your message," and he's like, "The message I left 5 minutes ago," and it's like we know that obviously, but it was kind of cool to see him make that realization, even though he's been time traveling, but it's still like, you know, it's still happening around other people besides him. So I think that was kind of cool to see him react to that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the machine obviously is not scientifically accurate because, how are they doing that?
Yeah.
But what I do like about this movie is that it's pretty consistent on their rules in terms of, on changing things, which I believe you can't at all.
We also don't see where he lands. Like, once he is in the machine and he travels, I don't think there's ever a time where we see him appear.
We just know he's naked.
So. Yeah, it's very smartly edited that you never have to question it too much. I always imagined it's kind of, remember that old game Worms?
Yeah.
Where you had to or Battle Tanks, where you had to kind of aim, and they're like, okay, you have to shoot him on the y-axis, and hopefully he lands somewhere on the x-axis of time when we shoot him like this.
That's great.
I'm not sure if that's exactly how it works. I don't think there is an exact answer exactly how it works, because then it would be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Which is true. Which is why the rules hold up so well. Because once you get past the machine, it's just like, well, he's time traveling.
Yeah, but everything that we see, things aren't changing. He was always at World War I. He always was shot and killed in the airport. As far as we know, the astrophysicist, the lady that, on the airplane at the end, she was always there. So her being there didn't change the virus being released.
How do we know that she was always there?
I mean, if I'm extrapolating the rules that nothing can be changed, then she always was there.
Yeah, she always was there. Right.
Which means that she didn't stop the virus?
Well, the mission is to gather information and to get a pure sample of it to create a vaccine for it I think to then rebuild the world in the present day. Not to change the past, that it didn't happen, but to rebuild the world.
Right. So the idea is they can't change what has happened, but they can get the information from what has happened to change what's going on in the present.
Right.
Which is, because Bruce Willis's character is getting information. It's in the form of dreams of him getting shot. The problem is he can't change the fact that he's going to get shot in the airport.
Yeah.
Even though he might take a different path or maybe do slightly different things, it's always going to correct itself that he does the same thing.
Well, I know, but see, I always imagine that we're seeing the timeline as it was, kind of like Time Crimes, where things aren't changing at all. This is just how they always happen. In his dream, he saw Brad Pitt as the guy with the wig, but I think he was just drugged up and crazy.
Right.
But everything that happened, that's how it originally happened the whole time, Right. That's how I interpret it.
No, I interpreted that way as well. That they're on. This is not necessarily a loop, but it's always just going to be that way. Yeah. They just want to extrapolate. How do we change our present based on learning?
Yeah,
it's basically going in time and figuring out. It'd be like almost if you were taking a test in the present, like a really complicated science test or whatever, and you're like, I can't remember what this word means or whatever this is, and then you time travel back to a week earlier when your teacher was telling you that. You cannot change anything you did in that day, but you can it can be fresh when you go to the present. That's the answer, and then you can do well on the test.
Yeah, it's like getting a chance to jump into points on the time stream in the past, but just because you're there doesn't make it different.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. It's definitely like a causal loop, because the only reason that they know the 12 monkeys are related is because Madeline Stowe's character calls the number and leaves a message saying the 12 monkeys did it because she thought that's what it was.
Right.
But then when Bruce Willis called to say it's not them at all, it's something else, then they now know to look somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's weird because, at what point in the present day did they actually know that? Did they know it after they sent him back?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously they did because they still needed him to go back to do it. But, I don't know, it's kind of weird.
It does seem like Bruce Willis, Madeline Stowe, they were always there, always doing these actions.
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm I guess I see what you're saying, that the scientist woman on the plane at the end is just getting information. She's not going to stop the virus.
Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, she doesn't care about stopping it. She does want to get a pure sample eventually.
Which is... The guy has it.
So. Right, the guy. And so... But clearly she's not going to get exposed to the virus because she's always in the future. So she knows she's pretty much safe.
Right. I imagine in the present day, they'll just pull her out whenever she has what she needs.
Right.
To then in the present day make the
Yeah.
vaccine.
She probably also knows how to handle it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be the one to go.
True.
Yeah.
True. Very good point. Because like they send usually criminals and like worker drones because they can't send the best minds and risk having something happen to them.
Yeah.
Until they know for sure where it is, and then they finally did, and then she went there.
Because it does seem like they've sent a lot of people before Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I was going to say, this world is littered with people that are from the future. Like, I mean, the crazy people, like the guy that was, he was like talking on the street with the fire in front of him. He was like, "Oh, you're one of me." Like, I think he's also from the future. Just he went crazy and they left him back there.
That would be frustrating because you know what's going to happen and you want to be able to stop it, but you also feel like you're crazy, and so you can't.
And also, Madeline Stowe's character, Catherine, when she's giving a lecture, she's talking about someone else that went to the 1300s and gave a prophecy of saying 600 years from now, he's like they say that he wasn't talking the language; he was given a weird dialect. It was someone from the future that they just really messed up and got lost in 1300s, and they were just like preaching about like in 600 years, humanity will be destroyed.
I like those details.
Yeah,
and like her phone call, we hear it distorted before it actually happens.
That's the original message that for them to investigate the 12 monkeys.
Yeah, which is crazy because once we actually like see that scene play out, and she's like laughing like it's some ridiculous joke. So it's really funny because there's so many people that have like probably died and like gone and time traveled just because of her one message. Mm-hmm. But like she doesn't really realize.
She's very and the whole movie is filled with that, like people who are painfully aware of what's happening and people who are painfully oblivious to what's happening.
Yeah,
it's like that's like the constant juxtaposition between the characters. Mm-hmm. I mean, Brad Pitt does a very good job playing a crazy person. He actually got nominated for an Oscar.
Oh, he did good. I was gonna say he really nailed it in this movie.
His eyes.
Yeah, his expressions were so good. Like in the car when they like, I forgot what they said, but they asked if he's crazy or whatever, and he looks like the camera sticks on him for like a few seconds. Like that expression was so like just perfect.
No, it really is. Brad Pitt when I was growing up. A lot of people were like, "Oh, Brad Pitt, he's a pretty boy." But then you see a lot of the roles he was doing in the '90s, and you're like, "Who in the world was thinking he was some pretty boy?" Like this was
like,
this.
He
did this 7. All that came out within like a 3-year period. Like, who are these people who thought he were? What? I mean, it was mostly people my age or slightly older who probably didn't know much about acting or anything of that nature. But it was just like they were probably just jealous that the girls that they liked thought Brad Pitt was so dreamy.
Yeah,
But it was just so interesting that like. Him and like Leonardo DiCaprio around this time were just seen as like these good-looking guys, but not necessarily actors.
Well, at this time, Leo was in Growing Pains, or
right? Yeah, he was
he was pretty young.
He was pretty young.
Well, no, that's not Titanic.
Gilbert, yeah,
that's right. Yeah, never mind. Sorry. Yeah, Growing Pains was like early '90s.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's still interesting. Actually, let's play a clip we have of Brad Pitt when Bruce Willis meets him and he's brought to the insane asylum, and kind of get an idea of how good his performance.
Hey, Gomes! Yo, Gomes! Yo, Jeffrey! Gomes! What? Hey, look here. This here's James. Now, do me a favor. Why don't you show him around, tell him the TV rules, show him the games and stuff, okay?
How much you gonna pay me? How much? I'd be doing your job.
$5,000, my man. That enough?
5,000?
I'll wire a check to your account as usual.
$5,000. $5,000.
$5,000.
I'll give him the deluxe mental hospital treatment.
My man.
Kid around, makes him feel good. Work out. You're the prisoners. No, you're the guards.
Now you got it. Now you got it.
Right. Okay. It's all in good fun. All in good. Here's some games here, and there's. Get out! Get out! He's in my chair. Games. Here's some games. Games I want to get out.
So,
he talks about games for a while.
I love his little games I want to get out. Kind of is like, like me.
Yeah.
Little laugh.
He also has really nice shoes on too. I didn't notice before, but like in the first shot when he's sitting in the chair, he has like fancy shoes.
It's like his one possession.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he is the son of.
Yeah, like you'd think everyone would be wearing like slippers and whatever, but he's wearing like nice like gator shoes.
That's a good detail. I didn't even notice that.
Well, and also the guy that comes later on in that silent scene, he's wearing a suit, but he has like fluffy slippers on.
Yeah, so it's like It's an interesting juxtaposition.
I never noticed. I never put those two together.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
I know, right?
Some film theory here.
I did take a film theory class.
You know what you're talking about, Modest.
I do. I wonder if that's where I watched this movie. Could have been. Anyway. So, did you feel... Back to... I know we were talking about kind of virus, end of the world, sort of post-apocalyptic feel, which also reminded me of Predestination.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he sees himself, can you prevent all this disaster from the future? So it did feel like those movies did have a lot of similar themes and stuff.
They did, kind of.
You know, the interesting thing of the main character being the only one to, like, see themselves in another time. And
right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean... Obviously, the time travel is incredibly relevant to the story because there's just, I mean, that's how they're going. That's how they're traveling. That's how they're getting around everywhere. But it's as much as it is a time travel movie, it's almost like this just like giant like kind of like sci-fi conspiracy movie at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, like almost not like the same, but like just kind of like in that same vein as like movies like The Firm. And all this jazz, or like Soylent Green, where it's just like this one dude who like everyone thinks is crazy, and it's just like trying to say like, no, I'm not. Like you have to listen to me.
Yeah, and you also don't trust the scientists from the present. You don't don't trust the 12 Monkeys because you think they're behind all of it. And even like Brad Pitt's father's character, like you don't know. I mean, like obviously he seems pretty oblivious, but you know who knows what his company's up to,
right?
The genetics, all that stuff.
So. When is Bruce Willis's present, like where the scientists are and where they send him back?
I'm pretty sure it's 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be like, it would be, is it 30? Is it 35 or 25?
It's around 30 because Bruce Willis' character's like 10 when he's a kid.
That's right.
And then Bruce Willis is like 40-something, so it's like 30 years.
Yeah, 30, yeah.
So, are we to also assume then that in those 30 years, that's when time travel was invented?
Yeah, but see, that's a good question.
Because, this virus spreads, 96, 97, they figure out time travel with a very small population of humans underground.
Well, they say necessity births innovation.
It's like maybe
Where do they get all that energy?
I mean, well, like, okay, the actual scientific doing of the machine doesn't make any sense. Obviously, to do it realistically would take a ton of energy.
Yeah, they shoot it through like one of those bank tubes.
Yeah, I know. Assuming that bank tube is like a wormhole, they open up and then send them through and then close it again. Even that would take an insane amount of energy.
And they do it constantly, and he's probably not the only one that they're focusing on at a time.
Yeah, they do it a lot. And so, like, the practicality of the actual time travel doesn't make any sense realistically.
Well, unless the animals took over above, right? So maybe it's Zootopia. The humans are living underground, and the animals they work and they live and they have all these buildings and jobs, and so they. So
you're saying
energy.
Judy Hopps is living above Bruce Willis and the world of 12 Monkeys?
I'm just saying, I don't think it's that much of a stretch.
Although maybe this is an alternate reality of that, where the virus in Zootopia turns out all the predators into predators, because we see the lion and the bear as normal lions and bears.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, I don't know. But, it is weird. Like, maybe...
Someone write some fan fiction of that. 12 Monkeys meets Zootopia. Probably be really weird, but go for it. You've written weirder stuff, fan fiction community. I know you can do it.
Yeah. No, but, like, so scientists, maybe with all of them being... like in that underground area, maybe they just have 30 years to really, really get to it, but even then they still didn't nail it perfectly.
There's a lot of kind of question marks, I guess, that I felt like the time travel was, it's time travel, but don't ask too many questions. Don't explain anything at all.
Yeah.
Which when we do our ratings at the end, will dock some points from me, because if you're going to use time travel, I think it's a cheat. I think it's not really fair to assume that the audience isn't smart enough to ask questions and want to know. Like, time travel, it's not just like a regular thing, in my opinion. I think it's something that's has rules, it's complicated, there's consequences. You know, we talk about it with every single movie that we do. And so and maybe it's, you know, because we're doing this podcast, but I get a little frustrated where I'm like, okay, you're just going to throw time travel in, you're not going to explain anything, sometimes it doesn't work right, sometimes it lands you in the wrong place, whatever, but we don't know how it was invented, we don't know when it was invented, we don't know how it works, where it goes, you know, like what it really is. So it feels like you're cheating us a little bit out of like this backstory that maybe you thought of but just didn't put in the movie or didn't think that was necessary. And maybe it's not, but for me that docks points.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are a few things they did. Like if let's say we rate time travel on like a few key things, like is it consistent? Is it scientifically accurate? Is it interesting to the story? Like this movie did a few of those really well. Like it's consistent in that we don't really see things that shouldn't make sense, but like, you know, things make sense in the timeline. Mm-hmm. How it happens, though, they don't explain any of that.
Yeah. There are some rules that we see, like there is some structure to it, which is also like why it's even more frustrating, I think, a little bit, because they spent time making this structure, but they didn't, you know, 96 in this, you know, it's like a regular 1996, and now it's 30 years from that is not far from the present day now that we're doing this. So it's, you know, for me, I'm like, that feels like a stretch.
You know what actually would have been, I think, a really cool idea is that the worker drones and all these criminals were actually building parts for the time machine just like in separate ways, and they just didn't know. So like they're always constantly repairing this. Like the whole underground network is actually just one giant like engine turbine for the time machine, and they have no idea that they're actually building it, except for the few who get sent up and be like, all right, we're going to send you back in time. By the way, everything you've been doing your entire life is just to keep this thing going.
That to me would be cool, because it would mean that they actually, the scientists, like worked with their, this sounds stupid, they worked with their minds to, you know, build this and found ways to power it at least. That's like a big question that at least that would answer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how I got on that tangent.
No. That's a good tangent.
Also, one of my notes, not okay to eat a spider. Don't care what fucking movie you are, not okay.
Yeah, during that scene I was watching, I was like, oh, Jen's not going to like this scene.
And that was pretty early on, too. So
he did it for the Oscar. He was doing it for the Oscar before Leo.
You can imagine, like, it was pretty early on, but you can imagine that, like, me seeing that, you took me out of your movie, and, like, I'm sorry, but you don't need to eat it. Why?
He needed a sample from the past. He couldn't have just eaten something else. He had to eat a spider.
But, like, wouldn't his digestive system ruin that sample anyway?
Obviously. That's...
So what's the point?
Well, I mean, obviously, like, when we come back to the present, he's like, okay, so you failed. He's like, well, I got a spider, but I ate it. And they're like, great, thanks. What does that do?
Right. It's just like...
it made him look like a crazy person.
Yeah, exactly.
He probably was at that point.
There's also a lot of butts in this movie.
Yeah, I wrote down, we saw Bruce Willis's butt twice. We saw Brad Pitt's butt.
Yeah. The first time, it easily could have not been Bruce Willis. I was thinking about that. I was like, I wonder if it was a
butt double?
A butt double.
But that was the second time, though, because he turned around, right?
The second time he turned around, and Brad Pitt was definitely him.
Yeah, he mooned, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But anyway, how'd you feel about the butts?
I mean, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, male butts. Seen them, have one.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I was I've seen Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt's butt.
I didn't really think about it that much, to be quite honest.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny. It's a cool scene. I mean,
well, because now they're such like the biggest names in Hollywood, pretty much, you know, and here they are.
Yeah.
Running around with their butts out, you know.
It's also really funny. I was watching Die Hard yesterday, or the day before, and so it's like he's such a different character in this movie than he is this drama thing. But anyway,
Bruce Willis is not good. Can we say Bruce Willis is not good enough credit as a dramatic actor?
No,
he is a very versatile. If you look at this man's career, it's incredible. He was on Moonlighting, then he does Die Hard, then he does movies like this, Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, then he does like all these family movies and voice acting, and it's like
it's a big deal.
And he's never been nominated for an Oscar. Not even for Sixth Sense. Like, that's crazy.
That's a travesty.
Like, that's like, I think that's I think that's wild. I mean, yeah, most of his career has been action movies.
Yeah.
But even his action movies, like, he's been in a lot of action movies, and most of them are fairly memorable films.
Can I make an analogy? To me, Bruce Willis feels like how the CW is to Emmys. That CW has a lot of really good shows that are stronger than a lot of the shit NBC, ABC comedy drama lineup that's like always get canceled after like maybe 1 or 2 seasons.
Right.
And I think, and yeah, I'm biased because I really like all the CW, most of the CW shows, but Vampire Diaries excluded. Sorry if you're a fan. But you know, like how people kind of discredit it because it's on the CW,
right?
Like how Bruce Willis does all these action movies, but that doesn't mean that it's also not great at the same time.
Yeah, it's true. It is kind of one of those. I always thought like he had like one of the most like underappreciated careers because there's almost no movie that has Bruce Willis in it where I'm like, oh, Bruce Willis didn't need to be in this movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what's he doing in here?
Yeah, Looper was definitely better with him in it. That's for sure.
Right? Could you imagine if they did that movie with like I don't know some other generic action star, like
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, it would never work.
Wow.
Never work.
I determined that seeing Bruce Willis with hair, regardless of the context, is really weird.
It never works.
Never looks good.
Even when it's his real hair, it never looks right.
Like, yeah, I mean, obviously he was wearing a wig in this movie, and it wasn't half balding. But even just with that,
it still
looks weird.
Comical. Yeah, it's so funny.
I thought it was funny when she put the mustache on him. The first time it was like wispy, and as soon as he wakes up again, it's like a thick, like handlebar mustache. I'm like, okay, she must have done some more work on that because it was not that way.
Yeah,
she was like, by his sleep, she was like, I'm just gonna add a little more here, make it real thick.
Is there any science accuracy that you were able to grasp from it? I know they didn't really explain much.
No, I mean, okay, like I have to do a lot of guessing. Like, let's say they open up a wormhole to shoot him through there. There's no way that they can then
into the bank.
Well, I mean, okay, no, look, if they have a way to open up a wormhole and like choose where it is, it seems like they can open it up in the present day pretty easily and send him through it. They have a problem with actually being accurate with where they send him to, which means they can open up one end, but the other end is kind of hard to open up. The fact that they can then pinpoint him in the past and then suck him through another wormhole, if they do it that way, I mean, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they'd have to have... It's inconsistent. If they don't know where they're shooting him, but then they can pull him out, like that, you know? Right. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, maybe they have also like a teleportation thing that they can, you know, they invented time travel without explaining anything. Maybe
they're definitely bending time and space in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't think of anything other than just science in quotation marks, you know.
They're scientists, so that explains away any questions we have.
I mean,
she's wearing a lab coat for crying out loud. She knows what she's talking about.
They're sitting at a panel. It's fine.
I mean, any accuracy I can think of is just me extrapolating my own.
Yeah.
Like, the movie doesn't really give us anything to work with, so everything I do, I just make it up, pretty much.
You know what was also interesting was something that I didn't think about until just now, was comparing the scientists in Bruce Willis's present who sent him in the time machine to this doctors, I guess, when he's in a mental institution. It's like
the panel.
It's they're both set up the same way in placement, but they're very drastically different feels and looks and how they are. And I haven't thought about comparing those, but I do think that's interesting.
Yeah, it is definitely a good choice from, you know, obviously the Terry Gilliam standpoint, because for Bruce Willis' standpoint, he's just being told these things by panels, you know, and he's being told that he's crazy by one of them and being told that he's important by the other one, you know.
Yeah, I think that also drives home his confusion, too, because it's probably very similar to him. One is just more underground, future-y, dystopian society, and the other is like very clean, white hospital, so.
When I'm talking about the clothes and the sets?
Yeah, pagers.
Yes, very 90s.
Very loud pager.
Yeah.
It was very 90s. Things are baggier.
Baggier and dirty.
Clothes are everything's very dirty, very, you know, a lot of flyers on walls, a lot of homeless people everywhere, seems like.
The underground set, like, very odd and very Terry Gilliam. I did like it. It feels almost like some, like, morphed Dr. Seuss, Tim Burton, mixed with like steampunk that
yeah,
just
it really,
threw together.
Yeah, especially when he's in the chair that shoots up to the wall and like the camera that's in front of his face. It's very like a meshing of like of Tim Burton with like steampunk.
I like that cool camera thing and him being up high and that. And there would like be people walking down on the floor below him. And the camera was like up.
It was like in Portal, the enemy or whatever, GLaDOS. It kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah,
although GLaDOS is way bigger. It's like this mechanical thing from the ceiling with like cameras on it and stuff like that. And like, yeah,
it was kind of like GLaDOS, not as sassy as GLaDOS. Obviously.
Yeah, obviously,
but yes, very much so.
Did you guys like Madeline Stowe, or did you feel like maybe that could have been played by someone else?
I liked her. Yeah, I liked her performance. I thought her character was interesting because right from the start, you kind of see that she's interested in Bruce Willis's character because she's like, I've seen him before, I think, and then you see that her work is about these characters in the past that like.
Yeah, I thought that reveal would have been more interesting than. I just don't buy that. She feels like she's seen him before when he was 10 as a child.
Wait, no,
that's
she means from the picture.
The picture, because time travels. Yeah. I was like, no, that's not what's wrong.
Because she studied that guy that who was Bruce Willis, who was Jose, right? Wasn't that Jose?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was him. She was studying him.
Okay.
And then she saw him in the picture.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting because I was like, I don't know, it was weird how they handled her character too, like.
How she kind of starts to go crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how they did that, but like before that, you can kind of see that she's like believing more about it, but it's weird that like I don't know, she's at the hands of a lot of men being beat up by them, which I'm never a fan of. Like guys beating up women and then gonna rape them. Like I'd rather not see that, obviously, but like I don't know.
It does feel very masculine heavy in this movie.
She seemed like she's on the ground and she can't do anything about it. Like
she was an interesting character, and I like that she was throughout the movie. Did not pass the Bechdel test, I'll tell you that. But she's literally like the only woman, and she never interacts with the only other woman, which is the female scientist.
Right.
So, sorry, but does not pass.
But does that mean it's a bad movie? Just saying
no,
but
well, it's a very masculine movie. That's the thing. I think that's what I was saying about the whole like her being on the ground. I'm like, it's a very masculine heavy movie.
Yeah, and that always kind of why I guess is my question. Like, why does it need to be that way?
I mean, but that said, I do like her character though. I feel like it was they had a good eventual relationship between her and Bruce Willis, where she kind of went crazy too, like you said, and then like helped him out and was there, Yeah,
it made her sympathetic to him, and so Would you guys want to experience this time travel? As Bruce Willis?
It makes you crazy.
Yeah.
And it also gets you killed if you're Bruce Willis. So
yeah, I'm gonna pass on this too. Yeah. No.
For the simple reason that I guess I don't know why they would do it, but they plug you full of needles when they send you through there. He's like all these injections, and he's in this weird contraption. I'd just rather not. Not do that.
It doesn't seem sanitary. It doesn't seem safe.
Yeah. Maybe they already. Maybe they already knew that Brad Pitt's character was in the mental institution, so they pumped him full of drugs get him in there.
I was thinking about that too because
other people have been giving them information about stuff. They already had his picture. I could buy that. Maybe they knew he was in there and wanted.
That makes sense.
To be in there too.
I definitely could see that happening because if it is one timeline that already happened, then there could have been a way for the scientist lady after she got the sample to then leave a message to the future, and they could have decoded it, and then all along they might have already known it, and they just had to send him back to fulfill it like a predestination. He had to be there in order for it to happen, so they just sent him back there.
Yeah,
I can definitely buy that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there isn't really any appealing aspects to me of this particular time travel because we can't say, well, I would experience it because it's time travel, because when we compare all of this podcast to everything, that's never a reason for us to say that. So
the biggest reason is usually, are we going to be killed by it, or is there a chance for us being killed?
Or like the consequences are way negative, which is usually the case is that bad things happen. It's like, it's going to be hard for us to find a movie where, someone travels in time and only good things happen. Even 13 Going on 30 was kind of a shit show. So.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Minutemen, like every single movie, you know.
Minutemen, the Earth almost got destroyed.
Yeah.
Was it for those brave high schoolers?
Yeah.
They almost gave their lives for our planet.
Right at the school dance.
Yep. No adult supervision, but you know.
Who needs it?
It's fate of the world. Send the 3 teenagers.
So, did you guys have any other? Yes. And on that note, what else did you guys notice about the film? Do you have any other notes that we want to discuss?
I just like I know we talked about it earlier, but I just like Brad Pitt a lot in this movie. I mean, like we didn't talk about him a whole lot, but his character he's the third biggest character in the movie. But in terms of what we actually know is important in the movie, he's not that important. But every scene he's in is just really good. Like, really good. Especially in 1986 when he's like quote unquote sane. Mm-hmm. He's still like unhinged, you know. You can still tell that it's kind of off, and he always plays that really well, I think.
Yeah, I liked the time loop aspects of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Bruce Willis is the one who was crazy, but mentioned
the 12 monkeys.
The 12 monkeys, the virus, whatever, to Brad Pitt, which also tried to lead the audience to, you know, heavily believe that Brad Pitt got the idea from Bruce Willis, and that's the reason why the virus is caused in the first place, which feels very predestination.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I did like, and I think we mentioned this, but I did like that was not the case, that Brad Pitt just wanted to release the animals that were being tested on instead, but that the virus itself kind of still was part of the time loop because Brad Pitt's dad was the virus doctor whose assistant, you know, overheard the Madeleine Stowe telling Brad Pitt's father on the phone about the virus and mentioned it, and he kind of gets the idea for it, and that's, you know, puts everything into place. So
I mean, obviously that guy is he's a little psychotic, you know. He's a little obsessed with the end of the world.
Everyone's a little psychotic.
Yeah, that's true.
And we see him early on at her book signing.
Yeah.
When he's like kind of harassing her a little bit with his
really
like,
creepy. Like I kind of
theories and stuff, and I was like, it was hard to
you know what, it was because he was looking at her right in the eyes and she wasn't even looking at him.
Yeah.
And like I remember the first time I watched the scene, I couldn't listen to him because I was like
it's hard to listen to what he's saying. Yeah.
Wait, what did he say? I didn't pick up a word he said the first time. I went back and watched the scene and I was like, okay, well now he's some crazy nut about the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. But the first time through, I was like, this is just weird. I'm not picking up what he's saying. I just know this is awkward and creepy.
David Morse plays unhinged, a smart guy very well. He also does it in World War Z. Technically, even though it's a very different type of tone, he does it in 13 Blocks with Bruce Willis. He always plays. He's very good.
Brad Pitt was in World War Z.
Yeah, World War Z. They come back the David Morse connection.
Another apocalyptic movie.
Yeah. World War Z's, you know, end of the world.
We discovered a link
with a virus. Yeah.
With a virus.
Interesting. He just can't escape.
He should have been in 28 Days Later. That would have given him a secret trilogy.
Yeah, right.
He was almost there. Darn it, David Morse.
Yeah, I liked the virus thing, and even when you see that it's not Brad Pitt, and then you kind of get that it's that guy, and then Madeleine Stowe realizes who it is. I still liked that it was him. He was there enough that I didn't feel like he was just kind of there for only that purpose.
Yeah, whenever he was in a scene, you notice it. You're like, okay, he's listening or doing something that's weird.
Yeah, he's scattered throughout the film, which I appreciated. Unlike, you know how like some episodes of Psych, you can tell who the bad guy's going to be because he's in like a scene.
Right.
And it's like, why does he have so many lines?
Like, we're watching, Jen and I are watching Veronica Mars right now, and it's my first time seeing it. Every time I'm like in an episode, I'm like, okay, that person's going to be involved. Because it's like some random student that's in the class that we like see for an extra second.
Yeah, we have never seen before, and then they have like 5 lines. Yeah. And like, what is this person? Why are they getting so much camera time?
Right, and then of course they have to do the zoom in to Veronica Mars assessing what she's hearing.
Yeah,
because then that's always a good tell.
I think it'd be really funny too to like watch that without the VO and like see her just like walk around the halls just quietly like staring at her for like 35 seconds. Like
some scenes when the time passes, she's there for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a cool shot though.
I know,
Not to get on a Veronica Mars rant, but But, you know, if she's, like, standing and there's people going by a little bit quickly around her, like in Guard State, you know that shot?
Yes.
Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's just fine.
last known the Veronica Mars and voiceover stuff. They do spoof the long voiceover in the movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story with John C. Reilly. Because at the beginning of the movie, he's sitting out there about to go on stage, like and walk the line, and they're like, "Come on, Dewey, you're about to come on," and his partner's like, "Don't you see the man's about to have a flashback about his entire life?" And so you know, this is kind of one of the similar things.
I saw that movie and was frightened by a giant John C. Reilly penis.
Yep.
That was the thing that happened, and it was like I was in high school, so it was like really uncomfortable. I was with this guy who like had a crush on me, but I didn't like him, and so we were like sitting there in the movie theater together watching this movie, and it was like one of those kind of awkward moments where no one says anything, and you're just like, oh my god, I can't move until this is past.
It's like watching a sex scene with your parents in the room,
Yeah.
like a Titanic, whatever. When she's naked, and you're like,
oh my god,
be watching this with my parents, but
you can't do. You're just stuck. You can't do anything. You can't say anything. You can't move. You can't breathe.
No,
you're just
it's
like
because you're like, oh my god, is he thinking about his penis? And then like, does he want to have sex with me now because we're watching the movie and it's like really uncomfortable?
Nothing.
It's like one of those. Anyway,
nothing
Mom, if you're listening.
nothing brings a movie to a stop like a penis.
And that's our motto.
That's our motto. I'm sticking with it.
So
we're going to put it on t-shirts.
So far, I think we've been penis-free on our movies. Right?
Yeah.
I think.
There's been no time travel penises in this.
Well, there's a little one in Predestination.
Oh, that's true. But that's not...
It's not a real one, though.
Yeah.
It was prosthetic.
And it's quick enough, and it's not like a close-up. It's not like in your face.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying that Hollywood is stigmatized with the penis for too long. And if we don't change anything, then we're not going to go anywhere as a society.
It's true.
Okay.
Free the nipple, or free the penis.
Remember that, listeners. Like, what did we talk about in the 12 Monkeys episode?
Just so everyone knows, they are joking. Okay?
Sorry.
Just a disclaimer.
We're going to get Twitter tweets like, what were you guys talking about?
Sexist.
You guys are filth.
In all seriousness, keep it in your pants, guys.
Yeah.
Please.
I liked Ghostbusters.
And don't send penis pics to girls. No one ever wants to see that.
No one wants to
Even
see
if they
that.
tell you they want to see it, they're full of shit to see if you'll actually do it.
You know what?
They're gonna laugh at your penis.
They're gonna send it to their friend, and you're gonna wish you had a time travel machine to go back and say, "I wish I hadn't sent."
Thank you for
my
bringing it full
penis.
circle.
Look at that! Boom! Segue.
Love it.
Boom! Refuse.
My last note was I liked when they said you can't change the past; you just see it differently because you're different. I liked that.
Yeah. And Bruce Willis saw it differently when he got shot.
Yeah, he did.
As a kid, he saw it differently when he was there when he got shot.
He's a different person. He has different knowledge. Did you have any other notes?
No.
That was a lot of ranting.
I love it though.
I love it.
So that's what a podcast is only as good as its rants.
I'm still determined that maybe there's a way that we can do a psych episode. What about the 1967 Psych Odyssey?
You could do
Does that count as time travel?
Because the whole episode is a time travel. That's the one. That's the second to penultimate episode, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the last season.
We could force it. We could crowbar that.
The viewers are traveling through time.
The viewers are.
Yeah.
And Timothy Ogdenson is traveling through time.
Or what about that one where he's asleep with the snow globe?
That's a dream sequence.
More dream.
That's a dream sequence.
That's a Christmas Carol homage.
And Wonderful Life too.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And he directed that episode.
He did.
James Roday. Anyway, James Roday, we'd love you to come on the show. I bet he would.
He probably
likes time travel. Okay, final reviews of this movie. 12 Monkeys is what we're talking about, in case you've forgotten in the past 20 minutes, since we haven't talked about it. Who wants to start? I'll start. How about that? As I said in the beginning, I like this movie, but this time around wasn't super stoked by it. So I'm going to give it 6 out of 10. No, that feels a little low. 6.5. 6.5 out of 10.
Cool. Yeah, my first time seeing it, I'm almost going to be 30 years old. I haven't seen this movie yet, and, so I'm surprised that I had no idea what to expect.
You're almost 30?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a problem for me. Just kidding.
Too bad. So I'm surprised that I haven't seen it until now. But I think I saw it at a good age. If I saw it when I was like 15 or 16, I probably wouldn't have appreciated it as much.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I would have. But yeah, I like the movie a lot. I thought it was really well made. I thought Terry Gilliam did a really good job. I like the style of it. I like just watching the movie. Obviously, it was kind of long. It was 2 hours long, but I don't know. Every single like kind of weird scene was charming, I think. So yeah, I'll give it an 8 or a 9. I'll give it 8.5.
Cool.
Solid. I'm gonna give it. I've always appreciated this movie. I oddly don't own it. I realized I had to like actually go. I was like, I can't believe I don't own 12 Monkeys.
Did you buy it?
No, I didn't buy it. I'm going to though. I just rented it for the time being, just because like I need to buy it now. And I don't have time to wait for Amazon.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a good movie. It's well done. I think it's just very interesting and different. It definitely stands out in terms of like sci-fi time travel movies. It's on its own, and it's a movie that it's just one of those rare, weird, and kind of dark but critically acclaimed movies that it still brings up a lot of interesting questions, which is what science fiction should do. It should make you think about stuff and bring up some interesting questions. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Cool. Yeah, mine's only low because I just didn't enjoy it this time.
I feel you on that.
Okay, so the Rotten Tomatoes, before we get into our time travel ratings, Rotten Tomatoes is 88%. So you guys were pretty spot on. Average rating was 7.5 out of 10. So there you go. Which I guess means 88%.
Well, it's 88% fresh.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
88% of critics. Yeah. Okay, so time travel rating. Yeah, I also mentioned this earlier because they didn't explain much of the science behind the time travel or how it came to be in their minimal society of humans. It just feels a little bit of a stretch for me. So I'm going to give that 5 out of 10 for time travel.
Yeah, there are 6 really smart people in the present day,
it seems
and they
like,
figured it out.
And that's it, yeah.
Yeah, obviously that talks
while they're
points.
focusing on a virus that wiped out humanity.
Right. Yeah, so obviously I'll dog off points for that too. It's not scientifically accurate as far as I can tell, but I did appreciate the consistency. You know, I always like it when they have one timeline and we kind of see it unfold. That's always like my kind of, I always prefer that. So I like seeing that kind of happen, you know. Yeah. Obviously there's some twists that we learned about and, you know, some misdirects. But yeah, I think it was good enough that I kind of didn't really question the science behind it. I was like, okay, it exists. Let me just see what they're doing with it now. So I'll give it around the same as you, 5.
Okay. I'm going to get a little bit higher of a rating. It's just because, yes, while the time travel doesn't make any sense if I actually do it, once the time travel is taken care of, like he's in different time periods, the rules are very consistent. The consequences are very consistent. And it doesn't pull a fast one on us where it suddenly changes the rules, which I always appreciate in a time travel.
Right, yeah.
They never say, like, whoa, we didn't tell you about this and you can do this. Like, no, everything is laid out and the audience discovers it.
It didn't pull in about time.
No, it did not pull in about time.
Right. Like if Bruce Willis actually shot the guy and stopped the virus, I'd been like, wait a second.
Right, it would have changed the rules of the time travel. So I'm going to give this 6 out of 10 just because I do feel like there's a little bit more consideration put into this than the average time travel movie in terms of how time travel affected the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I give it a 5 just because I feel like they should have at least done the science somewhere, like Jen said. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was a good use of time travel for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Matt, what did you choose for next time?
I cannot wait. We are going to do Primer finally. It's from 2004. It's a very low budget, very indie kind of movie. You guys haven't seen it yet.
Nope.
I saw it a few years ago and I loved it. I'm looking forward to see it again now that I've seen it already. But the synopsis is 4 friends / fledgling entrepreneurs knowing that there's something bigger and more innovative than the different error-checking devices they've built, wrestle over their new invention.
I wonder if that's a time.
Yeah, so this movie is it's a really, really mind-bending time travel movie. Cool. I think it's probably the most convoluted time travel movie there is.
Is it something that we're going to want to watch more than once?
It depends. It's a little hard to follow the first time through, so you might want to see it just twice. I'm looking forward to see it again because I've only seen it once. So I don't know. I'll see it second time through to actually know how to answer that. But it's if you're a time travel fan, you guys see this movie. It stands out.
And it's not that long either. It's an hour 15.
Yeah,
so.
You'll see when you watch it. That's pretty. I don't know. It's very low budget.
Cool.
But yeah, if you're a fan of this podcast, you gotta see this movie.
Cool. Okay. Anything you guys want to plug?
Other than myself.
Other than yourself. I have. This has nothing to do with time travel, but I have just binge watched the first season of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and loved it. I was very skeptical for a really long time, and I think it's like one of those things like the title kind of dissuades you from wanting to watch it, but it's the first season's on Netflix. It's feminine, girly stuff, but
it's a musical too, right?
It's a musical, but it's not in your face about it. It's clever, and it's a little bit self-aware as a show, which I enjoy. So yeah, if anyone likes that kind of stuff, I recommend that. Because heaven forbid there's a CW show that I don't watch. Other than Vampire Diaries. Yeah.
Singling you out, Vampire Diaries.
Yeah. Which I have seen, but I don't keep up with it. It's exhausting. So, social media, we are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and Instagram, and the Time Travel Trio podcast on Facebook. Please rate, subscribe, follow us on everything. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, obviously for free. And my personal, I am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and Instagram.
And I am at Foreman in Space.
I'm at Robinson is Hyde on Instagram and Twitter. So, with that,
we are out of time.